What if stress wasn't your enemy, but your greatest advantage? This audiobook shatters the myth that stress is harmful and reveals how to harness it for strength, resilience, and success. Your mind is more powerful than you think. Learn to turn pressure into power and thrive like never before. Introduction. Imagine this. Two people face the exact same stressful situation. A high-stakes presentation that could make or break their careers. One person crumbles under the pressure, feeling paralyzed by fear, their mind racing with worst-case scenarios. The other steps up, heart pounding but mind razor sharp, using the adrenaline rush to deliver the best presentation of their life. Same situation, two completely different responses. Why? For decades, we've been told that stress is the enemy, that it slowly erodes our health, shortens our lifespan, and drags us into burnout. We're bombarded with advice on how to eliminate stress, as if it's some kind of disease. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about stress is incomplete? Or worse, completely backward? What if, instead of destroying you, stress could be the very thing that makes you stronger, sharper, and more resilient? What if, instead of breaking you, stress could be the key to unlocking your greatest potential? This is the stress paradox. The idea that stress, when understood and harnessed correctly, is not just survivable, but essential for growth, success, and even a longer, healthier life. The difference between those who thrive under pressure and those who crumble isn't about avoiding stress. It's about knowing how to use it to their advantage. Welcome to a new way of thinking about stress. I want to take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. Years ago, I found myself in what should have been an exciting chapter of life. I had the career I'd worked for, the opportunities I'd dreamed of, and the kind of success I once thought would bring me happiness. And yet, I was drowning. The weight of constant deadlines, the pressure to perform, and the endless demands on my time left me exhausted. My body was breaking down. My mind was trapped in a cycle of anxiety. Like so many others, I believed that stress was the enemy, that if I didn't get rid of it, it would eventually destroy me. Then I came across something that shook me to my core, a study from Harvard University that flipped everything I thought I knew about stress upside down. Researchers found that people who believed stress was harmful were far more likely to suffer from heart disease, anxiety disorders, and even premature death. But those who saw stress as a fuel for growth, as something that could help them adapt, perform, and strengthen their resilience, were not only healthier, but they lived longer. The stress itself wasn't the problem. It was how people perceived and responded to it. That moment sent me down a rabbit hole of research, case studies, and real-world applications that transformed my entire approach to stress. What I discovered was nothing short of life-changing. Stress isn't just manageable. It can be a powerful force for good. And in this book, I'm going to show you exactly how to turn stress into your greatest asset, the hidden power of stress, and why no one talks about it. Think about some of the most successful, fulfilled people in history. Do you think they got there by avoiding stress? Number, they used stress as a tool. Elite athletes push their bodies to the limit, embracing the discomfort of training, because they know it's what makes them stronger. Entrepreneurs and innovators thrive under the pressure of uncertainty, using it as motivation to push boundaries. Even our own immune system works this way. Exposing yourself to small stressors, like exercise or cold showers, actually makes your body more resilient to bigger threats. Stress, in the right doses and with the right mindset, is a biological and psychological advantage. It can make you more focused, more determined, and even more emotionally intelligent. But because we've been conditioned to fear stress instead of understanding it, we've turned a natural and beneficial process into something destructive. And the worst part? By running from stress, we actually weaken ourselves over time. Here's the hard truth. You will never have a life completely free of stress, but you can have a life where stress works for you instead of against you. You can learn to shift your perception, harness its energy, and rewire your brain to use stress as a tool for success. How this book will transform your relationship with stress. This isn't just another self-help book about managing stress or finding balance. This is about fundamentally rewiring the way you think and feel about stress so that instead of fearing it, you can leverage it to become stronger, healthier, and happier. In the chapters ahead, you'll discover the science of stress and why your body's stress response isn't designed to harm you, but to prepare you for action. How high performers, athletes, and successful leaders use stress to gain a competitive edge, and how you can do the same. Practical, evidence-based techniques to reframe stress, build resilience, and turn pressure into power. The shocking truth about how stress can extend your lifespan and what you need to do to make sure it works in your favor. How to develop an anti-fragile mindset so that instead of breaking under pressure, you grow stronger from it. Each chapter will take you deeper into the mechanics of stress, giving you actionable strategies to turn stress into your superpower. By the time you finish this book, you won't just feel differently about stress. You will be transformed by it. Are you ready to master the stress paradox? Right now, you have a choice. You can continue believing the outdated myth that stress is something to be feared and avoided, letting it control and weaken you. Or you can step into a new way of thinking, one that puts you in control, where stress becomes a force that sharpens your mind, fuels your ambition, and enhances your life in ways you never thought possible. The people who master stress master life itself. The question is, will you be one of them? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The myth of stress as the enemy. The lie we've been told about stress. For as long as most of us can remember, stress has been framed as a silent killer, an invisible force that chips away at our health, happiness, and longevity. Doctors warn us about stress-related illnesses. Self-help books promise techniques to eliminate it, and wellness influencers promote stress-free lifestyles as the ultimate aspiration. It's no wonder that we've come to fear stress as something inherently destructive, a force that must be avoided at all costs. If you scroll through social media, you'll see countless posts about reducing stress or escaping the stress trap, as though stress is some monstrous entity waiting to consume us. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if stress isn't the villain we've been led to believe it is? There's a reason why some of the most successful, resilient, and happiest people on the planet don't see stress as an enemy. They don't run from it, nor do they seek to eliminate it. Instead, they harness it. They recognize that stress, when approached correctly, can be an ally rather than an adversary. Take a moment to think about the times in your life when you've grown the most. Were they times of ease, relaxation, and comfort? Or were they moments when you were pushed, challenged, and even overwhelmed? Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from pressure. Your brain and body are designed to respond to stress in ways that build strength, sharpen focus, and fuel adaptation. The problem isn't stress itself, it's how we've been taught to think about it. The latest scientific research is rewriting the narrative on stress, revealing that the way we perceive stress determines whether it harms us or helps us. Studies show that when people believe stress is harmful, their bodies react in ways that actually make it more damaging. Their blood vessels constrict, their inflammation markers rise, and they experience higher rates of anxiety, burnout, and illness. But people who see stress as a challenge, who believe it's their body's way of preparing them for something important, have entirely different physiological responses. Their blood vessels stay open, their bodies produce growth hormones instead of excessive cortisol, and their performance under pressure improves. In other words, stress doesn't have to be toxic. It only becomes harmful when we see it as harmful. the hidden benefits of stress. Most people don't realize that stress is responsible for some of the body's most powerful mechanisms for adaptation and survival. When you lift weights at the gym, your muscles experience stress. That stress doesn't make you weaker, it makes you stronger, forcing your body to repair and grow. The same principle applies to the brain. Stress pushes your cognitive abilities, enhancing memory, problem-solving skills, and creativity. In fact, moderate levels of stress have been shown to increase neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form and reorganize neural connections, making you more adaptable and mentally agile. Consider elite athletes, military leaders, and high-performing professionals. They don't reach the top of their fields by avoiding stress. They become great by engaging with stress, using it to sharpen their skills and strengthen their resilience. Studies on Navy SEALs, for example, show that those who thrive under pressure are the ones who reframe stress as a signal to focus, not as a threat. The best athletes don't see competition anxiety as something to fear. They see it as fuel. The same principle applies to entrepreneurs who navigate high-stakes decisions or parents who juggle the demands of raising children while managing careers. Stress is not the problem. It's our relationship with it that determines whether it crushes us or makes us stronger. But beyond performance and mental agility, stress also plays a critical role in building emotional resilience. The more we engage with challenges, the more we develop the ability to navigate them. Psychologists call this stress inoculation, meaning that exposure to manageable levels of stress actually makes us better at handling future stressors. This is why children who are overly protected from stress, never allowed to struggle or fail, often grow into adults who feel overwhelmed by minor challenges. Conversely, those who are taught to engage with stress in a healthy way become more confident, more adaptable, and more resilient in the face of life's inevitable difficulties. How stress can make you live longer. One of the most surprising findings in recent years is that stress, when managed correctly, may actually increase longevity. A study conducted at the University of California found that people who reported high levels of stress, but also believed their stress had a purpose, had lower mortality rates than those who experienced little to no stress. In other words, stress isn't inherently dangerous. It's how we interpret it that matters. People who believe stress is harmful tend to experience chronic inflammation, weakened immune systems, and higher risks of cardiovascular disease. But those who see stress as an energizing force experience fewer negative health effects and even benefit from its performance-enhancing qualities. Another fascinating study on aging revealed that telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes, are influenced by how we handle stress. People who view stress as harmful often experience telomere shortening, which accelerates aging and increases the risk of disease. But those who engage with stress positively tend to have longer telomeres, suggesting that stress can actually play a role in slowing down the aging process. It's as if stress, when properly managed, acts as a biological trainer, conditioning the body for longevity rather than destruction. Why we must reframe our relationship with stress. So where does this leave us? If stress isn't inherently harmful, and if it actually has the power to sharpen our minds, build our resilience, and even extend our lives, why do so many people still struggle with it? The answer is fear. We've been conditioned to fear stress, to see it as something to escape rather than engage with. This fear creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we resist stress, the more overwhelming it becomes. But what if, instead of resisting stress, we leaned into it? What if we embraced stress as a natural, even beneficial part of life? The key isn't to eliminate stress, it's to develop a better relationship with it. Just as a weightlifter learns to push through discomfort to grow stronger, we can learn to reframe stress as a challenge that propels us forward, rather than something that holds us back. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore how to shift our mindset about stress, how to harness its power for personal and professional growth, and how to develop practical strategies to turn stress into a competitive advantage rather than a source of suffering. You'll learn how to train your body and mind to respond to stress in ways that enhance rather than deplete you. Most importantly, you'll come to understand that stress isn't the enemy. It's the doorway to a longer, healthier, and more fulfilling life. So the next time you feel stressed, take a moment to pause. Instead of seeing it as a threat, ask yourself, what if this stress is here to help me? What if this is the exact pressure I need to grow? Because once you start seeing stress as your ally, you'll unlock a level of strength, resilience, and vitality that most people never reach. And that, perhaps, is the greatest paradox of all. Chapter 2: The Science Behind Stress. Understanding the biological symphony of stress. Stress is not just a feeling. It's not simply an emotional reaction to deadlines, conflicts, or uncertainty. Stress is a biological symphony, a precise and intricate system wired into every cell of your body, a system designed not to harm you, but to keep you alive. This system, refined over millions of years, is what allowed our ancestors to outrun predators, adapt to changing environments, and develop resilience in the face of adversity. And yet, in today's world, where survival is no longer dictated by our ability to escape a saber-toothed tiger, we've turned this system into something we fear. We call it burnout. We call it anxiety. We blame stress for our health problems and our unhappiness. But what if we truly understood the mechanics of stress, not as a force to be avoided, but as a tool we could master? To grasp the power of stress, we must first understand its architecture. At its core, stress is your body's activation system, a sophisticated physiological network involving the brain, hormones, and immune system. When you perceive a challenge or threat, whether it's an approaching deadline or an unexpected crisis, your body immediately mobilizes resources to help you respond. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal (HPA) axis, a key player in this response, signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones increase heart rate, sharpen focus, and flood your muscles with glucose for immediate energy. Your blood vessels constrict to prioritize oxygen delivery to essential organs, your senses heighten, and your brain shifts into problem-solving mode. This reaction, known as the fight or flight response, is not an accident of evolution. It is your body's way of arming you for battle, whether that battle takes place in a boardroom, on an athletic field, or in the face of personal adversity. The two faces of stress: acute versus chronic. Not all stress is created equal. The stress that sharpens your focus before an important presentation, the tension that propels an athlete to push harder during competition. This is acute stress, and it serves an essential purpose. Acute stress is short-lived. It prepares you, fuels your performance, and then releases its grip once the challenge has passed. This form of stress is not just harmless, it is beneficial. It enhances cognitive function, boosts immune activity, and fosters resilience. Research shows that students who experience moderate pre-exam stress tend to perform better than those who feel too little or too much stress. Similarly, studies on elite athletes confirm that those who embrace stress as an enhancer rather than an obstacle achieve peak performance levels. However, when stress becomes chronic, it tells a different story. Chronic stress is the stress of never-ending deadlines, unresolved conflicts, and unrelenting worries. It is not the short, intense burst of activation that sharpens you, but rather a prolonged state of physiological overdrive. When stress persists without resolution, cortisol levels remain elevated, and the very same systems designed to protect you begin to erode your health. Chronic stress weakens the immune system, disrupts sleep patterns, and accelerates aging by shortening telomeres. the protective caps on the ends of your DNA. Unlike acute stress, which ignites action, chronic stress paralyzes the body and mind, leaving you exhausted, anxious, and vulnerable to illness. Understanding the distinction between these two forms of stress is critical because stress itself is not the enemy. Mismanaged stress is. The key to harnessing stress lies in learning how to navigate between its two extremes, leveraging acute stress for motivation and growth, while preventing chronic stress from becoming destructive. The cognitive impact of stress. Friend or foe? Your brain is a stress-sensitive organ, and its response to stress is a double-edged sword. On one hand, stress enhances cognitive function by increasing the release of norepinephrine and dopamine, neurotransmitters that improve attention, memory, and problem-solving ability. This is why people under moderate stress often experience moments of heightened clarity, where solutions emerge in ways they wouldn't have under relaxed conditions. In fact, neuroscientists have found that moderate stress increases neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form and strengthen neural connections. This means that short bursts of stress can actually make you smarter, sharpening your ability to learn and adapt. But when stress crosses a certain threshold, its impact shifts. Chronic stress can flood the brain with excess cortisol, disrupting memory recall and impairing decision-making. The hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for learning and memory, is particularly vulnerable to prolonged stress exposure. Studies have shown that people who experience persistent high levels of stress have reduced hippocampal volume, which correlates with memory problems and increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Additionally, prolonged stress impairs the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center responsible for rational thinking and impulse control, while simultaneously strengthening the amygdala, the brain's fear processing center. This imbalance can lead to overreactive stress responses, where even minor challenges trigger excessive anxiety. The role of stress in strengthening the immune system. One of the most counterintuitive discoveries in stress research is that stress, in the right amounts, can strengthen the immune system. This may seem contradictory, given that chronic stress is known to suppress immune function, but the key lies in timing and intensity. Short-term stress activates the immune system, mobilizing white blood cells and increasing the production of cytokines, proteins that aid in fighting infections and healing wounds. This evolutionary mechanism ensured that our ancestors could survive injuries and infections during times of physical danger. In one study, researchers found that individuals who experienced brief, controlled exposure to stress exhibited enhanced immune responses, producing more antibodies and recovering from illnesses faster. This explains why some people seem to bounce back quickly from colds or minor injuries, while others, especially those under chronic stress, struggle with prolonged recovery. The difference lies not in stress itself, but in how it is regulated within the body. Mastering stress for a healthier life. The biggest takeaway from the science of stress is simple yet profound. Stress is not inherently bad. It is our ability to regulate it that determines whether it helps us or harms us. Stress is a tool, much like fire. It can either illuminate your path or consume you entirely, depending on how you wield it. Understanding the mechanics of stress allows us to transform it from a burden into a source of strength, unlocking the potential that most people never tap into. The key is learning to embrace acute stress while mitigating chronic stress, a skill that we will explore in the next chapters. By implementing strategic recovery periods, reframing our perception of stress, and training our minds and bodies to handle pressure with resilience, we can turn stress into an advantage rather than a liability. Stress does not have to be an obstacle. It can be the very force that sharpens, strengthens, and propels us forward. In the chapters ahead, we will dive deeper into the psychological tools and lifestyle strategies that can help you master stress rather than be controlled by it. You will learn how to reframe stress as a challenge rather than a threat, how to build a stress-resilient brain, and how to use stress to enhance your health, performance, and longevity. Because the truth is, stress was never meant to break you. It was meant to prepare you for something greater. Chapter 3. The evolutionary advantage of stress as nature's greatest survival tool. To understand stress, we must go back in time. Not just decades or centuries, but millions of years. Before stress became associated with traffic jams, work deadlines, and financial concerns, it was a force of nature, one that shaped evolution itself. Stress is not a modern affliction. It is one of the most powerful biological mechanisms that ensured the survival of all species, including humans. Without stress, we would not be here. Without the ability to react swiftly to danger, to adapt to changing environments, or to push through adversity, our ancestors would have perished long before civilization had a chance to take root. Stress, at its core, is not a weakness, but a feature of biological design, a tool that has helped organisms from the smallest microbes to the largest mammals survive, thrive, and evolve. The story of stress begins billions of years ago, long before the first humans walked the earth. Even single-celled organisms exhibit stress responses, reacting to changes in temperature, acidity, or threats from predators by altering their behavior to maximize survival. When conditions become hostile, bacteria activate a set of genes that allow them to go into survival mode, producing protective enzymes and adapting their structure to withstand extreme conditions. This fundamental stress response is woven into the fabric of all living things, forming the biological foundation upon which every evolutionary leap was made. In early human history, stress played an even more pivotal role. Picture our ancestors, hunter-gatherers navigating a world filled with predators, harsh climates, and uncertain food supplies. Every day was a test of endurance, requiring quick thinking, resilience, and an ability to thrive under pressure. When a predator lurked nearby, the fight-or-flight response kicked in, releasing a surge of adrenaline that sharpened focus, heightened senses, and fueled bursts of energy that determined survival. Those who lacked this acute stress response, who froze instead of fleeing, or who failed to react swiftly, were less likely to pass on their genes. Over generations, stress became hardwired into our DNA, an evolutionary gift that prepared us for a world where survival depended on quick adaptation and resilience. How stress built the human brain. Stress didn't just help early humans survive, it helped them become the most intelligent and adaptable species on the planet. The ability to experience stress was directly linked to the expansion of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher-order thinking, problem-solving, and planning. Unlike other species that relied purely on instinct, humans developed the ability to use stress as a motivator for long-term strategic thinking. The anticipation of scarcity drove early humans to store food. The pressure of social hierarchies encouraged cooperation and innovation, and the demands of an ever-changing environment led to the development of tools, language, and culture. Neuroscientists have discovered that mild to moderate stress plays a key role in brain plasticity, the brain's ability to grow, change, and adapt. When early humans encountered environmental challenges, their stress responses triggered the release of neurotrophic factors, proteins that promote the growth of new neurons and strengthen existing connections. This meant that those who experienced stress but learned to manage it effectively developed sharper cognitive abilities. In essence, stress became a biological training ground, pushing the brain to become more efficient, adaptive, and resilient in the face of adversity. Even today, research confirms that controlled exposure to stress enhances cognitive function. In one study, scientists found that individuals who faced moderate stress during childhood and adolescence, such as learning to navigate difficult situations or solve complex problems, developed stronger problem-solving skills and emotional resilience. Meanwhile, those who were shielded from stress altogether often struggled with anxiety and decision-making later in life. Stress, it turns out, is not just a test. It is the very force that sharpens and refines human intelligence. The role of stress in human achievement. Throughout history, the most extraordinary achievements, scientific breakthroughs, artistic masterpieces, athletic records, and technological innovations have been fueled by stress. It is not relaxation or ease that drives human progress, but challenge, pressure, and the demands of competition. Consider the greatest inventors, athletes, and leaders. None of them achieved greatness by avoiding stress. Instead, they learned to use stress as fuel, channeling it into creative energy, strategic thinking, and disciplined execution. Take Thomas Edison, who famously conducted over 1,000 failed experiments before inventing the light bulb. Had he viewed stress as a destructive force, he might have given up after the first failure. Instead, he embraced each setback as an opportunity to adapt, refine, and push forward. The same principle applies to elite athletes who don't just tolerate stress, they seek it out, pushing their bodies and minds beyond their perceived limits to achieve feats that were once thought impossible. Research in sports psychology confirms that athletes who view stress as a challenge rather than a threat consistently outperform those who fear it. The world's best competitors don't crumble under pressure. They thrive on it. The same holds true for business leaders, scientists, and artists. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Marie Curie, and countless other visionaries faced immense stress and uncertainty throughout their careers. What set them apart was not a life free from stress, but a mindset that allowed them to use stress as a catalyst for innovation. The difference between those who succeed and those who falter is not stress itself, but the ability to harness it effectively. Why a stress-free life is a dangerous illusion. Modern culture often sells the idea of a stress-free life as the ultimate goal, but the reality is that a life without stress is not only impossible, it is undesirable. Stress is what pushes us to grow, forces us to adapt, and gives life its sense of purpose and urgency. Imagine a life without any stress, pressure, or challenge. Without the tension that comes from striving for something greater, there would be no drive to improve, no reason to push forward, no motivation to evolve. The absence of stress does not lead to happiness. It leads to stagnation. Studies on human motivation confirm that people who engage with manageable levels of stress report higher levels of fulfillment and achievement. Psychologists have identified a concept known as eustress, the positive form of stress that fuels engagement, creativity, and personal growth. Unlike distress, which overwhelms, eustress provides just the right amount of pressure to keep us engaged, focused, and striving for something greater. This is why people who retire early often report feeling directionless and unfulfilled. Without the stress of challenges to overcome, life begins to lose its sense of purpose. The key is not to eliminate stress, but to cultivate a relationship with it that allows for growth rather than exhaustion. By learning how to channel stress effectively, we can reap the benefits of heightened focus, increased resilience, and greater achievement. The next chapters will explore the practical strategies for transforming stress from an obstacle into an asset, diving into the mindset shifts, physical practices, and daily habits that allow us to thrive under pressure. Because stress was never meant to break us, it was meant to forge us into something stronger. Chapter 4: The Mindset Shift, Turning Stress into Strength. The Power of Perception. Stress as a catalyst, not a curse. For centuries, stress has been painted as a villain, something to be avoided, suppressed, or managed, like an unruly force threatening to unravel our well-being. But what if stress was never the problem? What if the way we think about stress is what determines whether it empowers us or destroys us? Emerging research in psychology and neuroscience suggests that stress is not inherently harmful, but our beliefs about stress shape how it affects us. In other words, stress is not just a physiological response. It is a story we tell ourselves, a narrative that can either strengthen or weaken us. This shift in perception is not just theoretical, it has measurable biological effects. Consider the groundbreaking work of psychologist Dr. Alia Crum at Stanford University, who discovered that individuals who perceive stress as enhancing rather than harmful experience fewer negative health outcomes, lower cortisol levels, and higher resilience. In one study, participants were divided into two groups. One group was taught to see stress as a performance-enhancing tool, a force that made them sharper, more focused, and more resilient. The other group was exposed to the traditional view of stress as damaging and dangerous. The results were striking. Those who saw stress as beneficial performed better under pressure, recovered faster from setbacks, and exhibited greater mental and physical resilience. This finding has profound implications. It means that stress itself is not the enemy. Our mindset about stress determines its impact. When we reframe stress as an opportunity for growth, rather than a burden to bear, we activate different physiological pathways. Instead of triggering a damaging cortisol spike, stress can trigger DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, a hormone that promotes growth, adaptation, and brain plasticity. The key then is not to eliminate stress, but to train our minds to view it as a powerful ally rather than an inevitable foe. The science of stress resilience, building mental toughness. If stress itself isn't inherently harmful, why do some people crumble under pressure while others thrive? The answer lies in stress resilience, the ability to navigate pressure and adversity without being overwhelmed by it. Resilience is not an inborn trait. It is a skill that can be cultivated, much like a muscle. The more we expose ourselves to manageable levels of stress and recover from it, the stronger our resilience becomes. Resilience is deeply connected to how we interpret stress. Consider the challenge versus threat mindset, a concept well documented in psychology. When faced with a stressful situation, people typically react in one of two ways. They either see it as a threat, something to be feared, or as a challenge, something to be overcome. These two perspectives activate different biological responses. Those who see stress as a threat trigger excessive cortisol release, which leads to heightened anxiety, impaired decision-making, and even long-term health risks. On the other hand, those who see stress as a challenge experience a different hormonal response, a balance of adrenaline and DHEA, which fuels motivation, enhances problem-solving, and promotes learning. The best way to cultivate stress resilience is through gradual exposure and reframing. This concept, known as hormesis, suggests that small doses of stress make us stronger, much like how lifting weights strengthens muscles. In controlled studies, people who consistently faced small manageable stressors developed greater stress tolerance, faster recovery times, and increased emotional stability. This principle is evident in Navy SEAL training, where recruits are placed under extreme conditions, not to break them, but to teach them how to function effectively under stress. The lesson? Stress resilience is built, not inherited. And the more we train ourselves to handle stress in a constructive way, the better we become at turning pressure into power. How stress fuels growth. The role of post-traumatic growth. While much attention has been given to post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, there is a lesser-known phenomenon that reveals another side of the stress equation: post-traumatic growth, PTG. PTG is the process by which individuals not only recover from adversity, but emerge from it stronger, wiser, and more capable. Studies show that many people who experience significant life stressors, such as illness, financial loss, or personal crisis, later report profound positive changes in their outlook, resilience, and emotional depth. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, who pioneered the study of post-traumatic growth, identified 5 key areas where individuals tend to grow following adversity. 1. Greater appreciation for life. Many people who face serious stressors develop a deeper sense of gratitude and find joy in the small moments they once overlooked. 2. Stronger relationships. Stress often strengthens social bonds as people learn to rely on others for support and connection. 3. Increased personal strength. Those who overcome adversity often develop a newfound belief in their own resilience and ability to handle future challenges. 4. New possibilities. Stress can serve as a catalyst for change, pushing people to pursue new opportunities, careers, or passions they might not have considered otherwise. 5. Spiritual or existential growth. Many individuals report that stress leads them to reflect deeply on their values, priorities, and life purpose. The lesson here is clear. Stress is not just something we survive. It is something that can transform us. When approached with the right mindset, stress can be a gateway to profound personal growth and self-discovery. Reframing stress. Practical strategies to shift your mindset. If perception shapes our stress response, how do we actively rewire our thinking to make stress work for us? Research suggests several key strategies. Adopt a stress as fuel mindset. When you feel stressed, remind yourself that your body is preparing you to perform at your best. Instead of saying, "I'm so stressed," try saying, "I'm getting ready to rise to this challenge." Practice cognitive reframing. When faced with a difficult situation, shift your internal dialogue from "this is overwhelming" to "this is an opportunity to grow." Engage in controlled stress exposure. Regularly step outside your comfort zone in manageable doses. Public speaking, challenging workouts, or learning a difficult skill to build stress resilience. Use stress to enhance focus. When stress hits, channel that energy into action. High performers use stress as a catalyst to push forward rather than retreat. Develop recovery rituals. Just as athletes train hard and then recover, we must balance stress with intentional recovery through sleep, mindfulness, and social connection. The truth about stress is simple yet profound. It is not our enemy. It is our greatest teacher. Stress reveals our limitations, forces us to grow, and pushes us toward mastery. Those who learn to embrace and harness stress are not just more successful. They are more fulfilled, more resilient, and more capable of facing life's inevitable challenges. Stress is not something to be avoided or feared. It is something to be understood, embraced, and ultimately transformed into a source of power. In the next chapter, we will explore how to build a stress-resilient lifestyle, one that not only protects us from burnout, but enables us to thrive under pressure. Because stress was never meant to break us. It was meant to make us stronger than we ever imagined. Chapter 5. The Physiology of Stress. How your body reacts and adapts. The hidden mechanism. What happens? When you experience stress, stress is often described as an emotional or psychological experience, but at its core, it is a full-body physiological event, a cascade of biochemical reactions designed to protect you, sharpen your focus, and, if necessary, help you survive. When you feel stress, whether from an impending deadline, a heated argument, or a dangerous situation, your body undergoes a transformation that is both ancient and automatic. This response is not something you consciously control. It is deeply wired into your autonomic nervous system, ensuring that your body reacts even before your mind has time to process what is happening. The moment stress is perceived, the hypothalamus, a small but powerful region in your brain, sends a distress signal to the adrenal glands, triggering the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline is responsible for the immediate physical changes. Your heart rate skyrockets, your pupils dilate, your breathing quickens, and blood is diverted away from non-essential functions like digestion and reproduction toward your muscles, priming you for action. Cortisol, on the other hand, acts more like a strategic commander, regulating blood sugar levels, suppressing inflammation, and ensuring that the body has enough energy to sustain its heightened state. These physiological changes are not just random. They are the result of millions of years of evolutionary fine-tuning, ensuring that when faced with danger, you can react with speed, strength, and focus. While this response was crucial for our ancestors, helping them escape predators and endure harsh conditions, modern stressors are rarely life-threatening. Yet, our bodies still react as if we are facing a saber-toothed tiger, preparing for physical exertion, even when the danger is a looming work presentation or a difficult conversation. This mismatch between our ancient biology and modern stressors is what often makes stress feel overwhelming or chronic, leading to a host of unintended consequences. The nervous system's role, the tug-of-war between fight and calm. To fully grasp stress's impact, we must understand the two opposing branches of the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, SNS, and the parasympathetic nervous system, PNS. These two systems operate like a seesaw, with the SNS acting as the gas pedal, mobilizing the body for action, while the PNS serves as the brake, restoring balance and promoting relaxation. When stress hits, the SNS takes over, flooding your system with norepinephrine and epinephrine, increasing blood pressure, tensing muscles, and preparing for an immediate response. This is what we commonly refer to as the fight or flight response. But stress does not always manifest as aggression or panic. It can also trigger a freeze response, where the body shuts down, causing dissociation, numbness, or a sense of being paralyzed under pressure. The parasympathetic nervous system, in contrast, is responsible for bringing the body back to equilibrium. Through the release of acetylcholine, it slows the heart rate, relaxes the muscles, and signals the body that the crisis has passed. This is sometimes called the rest and digest state, where the body focuses on healing, recovery, and maintaining internal balance. The problem arises when stress becomes chronic, keeping the SNS constantly activated and preventing the PNS from doing its job. When this happens, the body remains in a heightened state of alertness, leading to burnout, anxiety, and long-term health consequences. Understanding this delicate balance is key to not only managing stress, but also harnessing it in a way that optimizes performance rather than depletes energy. Cortisol, the master stress hormone. While adrenaline provides the immediate surge of energy needed to respond to stress, cortisol is the longer-term regulator, ensuring that the body remains in a heightened state as long as needed. Produced by the adrenal cortex, cortisol has a wide range of effects on the body. It increases blood sugar for energy, suppresses non-essential functions like immune response, and even alters brain function to enhance focus and memory retention. But when cortisol levels remain elevated for too long, it leads to significant wear and tear on the body. Chronic cortisol exposure has been linked to weight gain, high blood pressure, weakened immunity, digestive issues, and even cognitive decline. One of cortisol's lesser-known effects is its impact on the brain. Excess cortisol can shrink the hippocampus, the area responsible for memory and emotional regulation, while simultaneously strengthening the amygdala, the brain's fear center. This means that prolonged stress not only makes you more anxious, but also weakens your ability to regulate emotions, creating a vicious cycle where stress fuels even more stress. However, not all cortisol is bad. Short bursts of acute stress can actually be beneficial, improving focus, strengthening memory, and even boosting immune function. The key is not to eliminate cortisol, but to maintain a healthy cycle where it rises in response to challenges and falls when the challenge is over. This is why recovery strategies like sleep, meditation, and physical activity are essential. They help regulate cortisol and keep it from becoming a chronic disruptor. How stress shapes the immune system. One of stress's most paradoxical effects is its relationship with the immune system. In the short term, stress enhances immunity by mobilizing white blood cells and increasing the body's ability to fight off infections. But when stress becomes prolonged, the immune system begins to weaken, increasing susceptibility to colds, inflammation, and even autoimmune disorders. The reason lies in the inflammatory response. Cortisol is an anti-inflammatory agent, meaning it suppresses the immune system to prevent excessive inflammation. However, when stress is chronic, the body can become resistant to cortisol's effects, leading to unchecked inflammation, a root cause of many modern diseases, from heart disease to Alzheimer's. Interestingly, research shows that our perception of stress directly influences immune function. In one study, individuals who viewed stress as harmful showed increased inflammatory markers, while those who saw stress as a challenge to overcome had lower levels of inflammation and better overall immune health. This means that how we think about stress does not just affect our mental state, it literally alters our biology. The adaptation process. How your body learns to handle stress. Despite stress's risks, the body is remarkably adaptive. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance training, the body learns to handle stress more efficiently when exposed to the right kind of challenges. This process is known as elasticity, where the body continuously adjusts to maintain balance in response to external demands. Some stress, when properly managed, makes us stronger. Controlled stress exposure, such as physical exercise, fasting, or even cold showers, can train the body to become more resilient. This principle, known as hormetic stress, is why elite athletes, special forces soldiers, and high-performing individuals actively seek out stress as a way to enhance physical and mental endurance. The body's response to stress is not random or inherently harmful. It is an evolutionary masterpiece designed to help us navigate life's challenges. But in a world where stress is constant, learning how to regulate and harness stress effectively is the key to maintaining both mental and physical well-being. The next chapter will explore how to build resilience by training the body and mind to recover faster, adapt better, and transform stress into an asset rather than a liability. Because stress was never meant to break us, it was meant to make us unshakable. Chapter 6. Building Stress Resilience, Training Your Mind and Body to Adapt. The nature of resilience. Why some people thrive under stress while others crumble. Resilience is one of the most powerful human traits. Our ability to withstand adversity, adapt to challenges, and emerge stronger from hardship. Yet, resilience is not evenly distributed. Some individuals seem almost impervious to stress, able to face immense pressure without breaking, while others feel crushed by even minor obstacles. Why is this the case? What makes certain people resilient while others struggle? The answer lies in a combination of biology, psychology, and deliberate training. Resilience is not something we are simply born with. It is something that is developed, shaped by experiences, habits, and even our beliefs about stress. Studies on high-performing individuals, from elite athletes to military personnel to successful entrepreneurs, reveal a common pattern. Those who thrive under stress do not have less stress. They have trained themselves to respond to stress differently. They have developed what psychologists call stress inoculation, a process where controlled exposure to manageable stress teaches the body and mind to adapt, increasing tolerance and reducing the negative effects of stress over time. Research by Dr. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, suggests that resilience is built through a combination of optimism, emotional regulation, cognitive reframing, and deliberate challenge-seeking behavior. His studies on military training programs revealed that individuals who were taught to interpret stress as a challenge rather than a threat were far less likely to develop anxiety, depression, or burnout, even after prolonged exposure to extreme stress. This means that resilience is not just about enduring stress. It is about training your mind and body to respond in a way that enhances, rather than depletes, your energy. The science of stress inoculation. How exposure builds resilience. One of the most fascinating discoveries in stress research is the concept of hormetic stress, the idea that small controlled doses of stress actually make us stronger. This principle is well documented in biology. When muscles are exposed to resistance through weight training, they grow stronger. When the immune system is exposed to low levels of a virus through a vaccine, it becomes more resilient. The same principle applies to psychological stress. Small controlled exposures to stress teach the brain and body how to handle future stressors more effectively, preventing overwhelming reactions and building long-term resilience. This principle is widely used in military training, high-performance sports, and even corporate leadership programs. Special Forces soldiers undergo gradually increasing levels of stress during training to teach their bodies how to function under pressure. This process, known as stress inoculation training, SIT, was pioneered by psychologist Dr. Donald Meichenbaum and involves three key phases. 1. Education, understanding stress and reframing it as a challenge rather than a threat. 2. Controlled exposure, practicing handling stress through incremental manageable challenges. 3rd application, using stress management strategies in real-world high-pressure situations. The key is progressive exposure. Just like you wouldn't start lifting 300 pounds on your first day in the gym, you shouldn't expect to handle massive stress without first building your resilience in smaller, controlled ways. Studies show that individuals who intentionally engage in challenging experiences, public speaking, endurance sports, or difficult problem-solving tasks, develop greater stress tolerance over time. The role of mindset in stress resilience. A fundamental component of resilience is how we perceive stress. Stanford researcher Dr. Alia Crum has demonstrated that our beliefs about stress directly influence our physiological response to it. In a groundbreaking study, participants were exposed to a high-stress situation and divided into two groups. One group was told that stress was harmful, while the other was told that stress was an enhancer, improving focus, resilience, and performance. The results were astonishing. Those who saw stress as a performance booster had lower cortisol levels, higher motivation, and greater cognitive performance than those who believed stress was harmful. This finding suggests that stress itself is not the problem. Our interpretation of stress is what determines its impact. Those who develop a growth mindset toward stress, seeing it as an opportunity to strengthen resilience, experience fewer negative side effects. Neuroscientists have even found that shifting our perception of stress activates different brain pathways, increasing the release of DHEA, a hormone that promotes neural growth and learning, rather than triggering excessive cortisol production. A practical way to develop this mindset is through cognitive reframing, the deliberate process of shifting how we think about stress. Instead of saying, "This is too much for me," try saying, "This is an opportunity to grow stronger." Instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," reframe it as, "This challenge will teach me something valuable." Studies show that individuals who regularly practice cognitive reframing are far less likely to suffer from anxiety and burnout, and are more likely to recover quickly from setbacks. Physical training for stress resilience. How your body influences your mind. Resilience is not just psychological, it is deeply physiological. The stronger and healthier your body is, the better it can withstand stress. Physical activity is one of the most powerful ways to build stress resilience, as it directly impacts the brain's ability to regulate stress hormones. Endurance training, such as running, cycling, or swimming, has been shown to increase the brain's capacity to handle stress by promoting neuroplasticity and increasing the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that strengthens neural connections. High-intensity interval training, HIIT, has been found to reduce cortisol sensitivity, preventing chronic stress buildup. Even simple practices like cold exposure, cold showers, ice baths, can train the body to handle stress more effectively by activating the vagus nerve, which plays a key role in stress regulation. Additionally, practices like breath control training, used by Navy SEALs and top athletes, help regulate stress responses in real time. Techniques like box breathing, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4, help shift the nervous system from fight or flight mode into a calm, controlled state. The importance of recovery. Why rest is crucial for stress resilience. Building resilience is not just about handling stress, it is also about recovering effectively. One of the most overlooked aspects of stress resilience is the ability to switch off stress mode and enter recovery mode. The world's most resilient individuals are not those who endure stress endlessly, but those who balance stress with deep recovery. This is why elite athletes focus just as much on recovery rituals, sleep, nutrition, mindfulness, and social connection as they do on training. Neuroscience shows that deep sleep plays a critical role in processing stress, regulating emotions, and replenishing cognitive resources. Similarly, activities like meditation, nature walks, and deep breathing exercises activate the parasympathetic nervous system, helping the body return to balance. Resilience is not about avoiding stress. It is about learning how to use stress to grow stronger. By adopting the right mindset, gradually exposing yourself to controlled stress, training your body to handle pressure, and prioritizing recovery, you can transform stress from an enemy into a powerful ally. In the next chapter, we will explore how to apply these resilience principles to your daily life, building a routine that not only prevents burnout, but helps you thrive in high-pressure environments. Because stress was never meant to break you, it was meant to make you unstoppable. Chapter 7. The Psychology of Stress: How Thoughts and Emotions Shape Your Experience. The mind as the first battlefield. Why stress starts in your thoughts. Stress is often perceived as something external, a looming deadline, an argument, a financial crisis, or an overwhelming to-do list. But the reality is that stress does not come from the outside world. It is born inside your mind. The way you interpret an event, the meaning you assign to it, and the emotions you attach to it determine how much stress you experience. Two people can face the same situation, say, a high-pressure presentation at work, and have completely different stress responses. One may feel paralyzed by anxiety, while the other sees it as an exciting opportunity to showcase their skills. The event is the same, but the perception is different, and that perception determines the body's physiological reaction. This is why the mind is the first battlefield when it comes to stress. The moment you encounter a challenge, your brain immediately assigns it meaning. If you perceive it as a threat, the stress response is triggered, flooding your body with adrenaline and cortisol. But if you view the challenge as an opportunity, your brain produces a completely different set of neurochemicals: dopamine, norepinephrine, and even DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, a hormone that helps the brain grow stronger under stress. This difference in interpretation is what separates those who are crippled by stress from those who thrive under pressure. The key to mastering stress is learning how to retrain your brain's automatic interpretations. This does not mean ignoring real challenges or pretending everything is fine when it is not. Instead, it means shifting your perspective so that your brain responds to stress in a way that empowers rather than overwhelms you. The good news is that this ability is not something you are born with. It is something you can develop through intentional practice. The self-imposed nature of stress. How thoughts create reality. The mind is an incredibly powerful tool, capable of shaping reality in profound ways. Psychological research has shown that our thoughts do not just influence how we feel, they actively change the way our brain and body function. When you think stressful thoughts, your body does not differentiate between imagination and reality. It reacts as if the stressor is real, releasing the same hormones and triggering the same fight or flight response. Consider a common example. You are lying in bed, trying to sleep, when suddenly you start thinking about an upcoming meeting where you might be put on the spot. Instantly, your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, and your muscles tense. Even though nothing is actually happening in that moment, your body reacts as if you are already in the meeting, under scrutiny and pressure. This is because the brain, particularly the amygdala, processes thoughts and emotions as if they are tangible threats, sending signals to the body to prepare for danger. This means that many of the stressors we experience are self-imposed. They are not caused by real, immediate danger, but by the way we think about potential future challenges. Anticipatory stress, the stress of worrying about something that hasn't happened yet, accounts for a significant portion of the anxiety and tension people experience daily. In many cases, the event itself turns out to be far less stressful than the mental buildup leading to it. Understanding this mechanism is crucial because it gives you the power to control stress at its source, your own thoughts. If you can change the way you think about a situation, you can change the way your body reacts to it. This is why cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a psychological approach that helps people challenge and reframe their thoughts, has been shown to be one of the most effective treatments for anxiety and chronic stress. The role of emotional intelligence in stress management. Beyond thoughts, emotions play a central role in shaping our stress experience. While stress is often seen as purely physiological, it is deeply intertwined with our emotional responses. When we feel stressed, what we are really experiencing is an emotional reaction to a perceived challenge, whether it is fear, frustration, overwhelm, or uncertainty. This is why developing emotional intelligence, EQ, is one of the most powerful ways to manage stress. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate emotions, both in yourself and others. Research has consistently shown that people with high EQ are far more resilient to stress because they can process their emotions in a constructive way rather than being overwhelmed by them. One of the key components of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, the ability to recognize when you are feeling stressed and understand what is triggering it. Many people go through life reacting to stress automatically without ever pausing to analyze where it is coming from. But when you develop self-awareness, you gain the ability to step back and observe your own reactions, allowing you to respond more intentionally rather than simply reacting out of habit. Another crucial aspect of emotional intelligence is emotional regulation, or the ability to shift your emotional state when needed. This does not mean suppressing emotions or pretending not to feel stress. Instead, it means developing the tools to process emotions in a healthy way so that they do not become overwhelming. Techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, and journaling have been scientifically proven to help regulate the nervous system, making stress more manageable. The power of reframing, turning stress into a performance booster. One of the most effective mental strategies for handling stress is reframing, the practice of shifting your perspective on a situation to change its impact. Instead of seeing stress as something negative, you can learn to use it as a source of energy and motivation. A famous study by Harvard psychologist Dr. Jeremy Jameson found that people who were taught to view stress as a performance-enhancing tool rather than a threat had better cognitive function, lower physiological stress responses, and improved performance under pressure. Their blood vessels remained more relaxed, their cortisol levels were lower, and their confidence increased, all because they saw stress as a challenge rather than a crisis. This suggests that stress itself is not the problem. The problem is how we label and interpret it. The next time you feel stress rising, try this simple reframe. Instead of saying, "I'm so stressed out," try saying, "My body is getting me ready to perform." This subtle shift in language signals to your brain that stress is not something to fear, but something to embrace and use to your advantage. Stress is not just a physiological reaction, it is a psychological experience shaped by thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. By developing greater self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and cognitive control, you can fundamentally change the way your brain and body respond to stress. Instead of seeing stress as an enemy, you can train yourself to view it as a powerful ally, a force that sharpens your focus, builds resilience, and prepares you for life's challenges. Chapter 8. Crafting a personalized stress management routine, daily habits for resilience. Why stress management must be intentional and structured. Stress is not a one-time battle. It is a daily reality. No matter how much you try to eliminate external pressures, challenges will continue to arise, and if you don't have a structured way of dealing with them, they will overwhelm you. Just like physical fitness requires a regular workout routine, mental resilience demands a structured, daily stress management routine. The problem is that most people only think about managing stress when they are already overwhelmed, rather than proactively building a foundation that prevents burnout and exhaustion in the first place. The world's most resilient individuals, high-performing athletes, successful executives, military personnel, do not leave stress management to chance. They have habits and routines designed to help their mind and body process stress in a healthy way. These routines are not random. They are carefully structured to enhance resilience, regulate emotions, and maintain high energy levels, even in the face of extreme pressure. If you want to not just survive stress but thrive under it, you need to develop your own stress management system, tailored to your lifestyle, personality, and unique stress triggers. This chapter will guide you through the building blocks of an effective stress management routine, giving you a clear framework to follow. By the end, you will have a practical, personalized system that ensures you are mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared to handle stress every single day. The morning ritual, setting the tone for a resilient day. How you start your morning determines how you handle stress for the rest of the day. Many people begin their day in reactive mode, immediately checking emails, scrolling through social media, or thinking about everything they have to do. This chaotic start activates the stress response before the day has even begun, putting the mind in a defensive, overwhelmed state. The goal of a morning routine is to set a proactive, calm, and focused tone for the day, allowing you to navigate stress from a place of control rather than reactivity. One of the most powerful habits to incorporate into your morning routine is mindfulness or meditation. Studies show that even just 10 minutes of meditation can lower cortisol levels, improve emotional regulation, and enhance focus throughout the day. Meditation is not about eliminating thoughts, but about training your brain to observe thoughts without becoming emotionally reactive to them. This practice strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking, allowing you to remain calm and clear-headed, even in high-pressure situations. Another essential component of a stress-proof morning is movement. Whether it is a workout, yoga, or a simple walk, physical activity activates the body's natural stress relief mechanisms, releasing endorphins and promoting relaxation. Exercise also resets the nervous system, preventing accumulated tension from carrying over into the day. Research has shown that people who exercise in the morning are significantly less reactive to stressors throughout the day, as their body has already released pent-up energy and anxiety. Lastly, intentional breathing exercises can be a powerful addition to your morning routine. Techniques like box breathing, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, holding for 4, help regulate the nervous system, ensuring you start the day in a balanced, composed state. These simple habits, meditation, movement, and breathwork, create a foundation that allows you to approach daily challenges with a resilient, focused mindset. The power of strategic pauses, managing stress in real time. No matter how well you start your day, stress will inevitably arise. The difference between those who get overwhelmed and those who remain composed is how they handle stress in the moment. The key to managing stress throughout the day is learning to interrupt the stress response before it spirals out of control. One of the most effective ways to do this is through strategic pauses. Instead of letting stress accumulate, schedule short breaks throughout your day to reset your nervous system. These breaks can be as simple as stepping outside for fresh air, taking 5 deep breaths, or doing a quick stretch. Studies show that brief mindfulness resets throughout the day can significantly lower cortisol levels and improve cognitive function. Another powerful tool is cognitive reframing, which involves consciously changing how you perceive a stressor. When faced with a challenge, instead of thinking, "This is too much," try reframing it as, "This is an opportunity to grow." Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," shift to, "I have handled difficult situations before, and I can handle this too." Research in neuroscience shows that how we label stress directly influences the body's physiological response. By changing the way you talk to yourself in stressful moments, you can shift from a fight or flight state to a more composed, problem-solving mindset. The evening wind down. How to prevent stress from accumulating. Most people think stress management is about handling stress when it happens, but the truth is, how you end your day is just as important as how you start it. If you go to bed carrying the weight of the day's stress, your body remains in a heightened state of alertness, making it harder to recover and reset for the next day. This is why an evening wind down routine is crucial. It helps release accumulated tension and signals to your brain that it is safe to relax. One of the most effective ways to clear mental clutter before bed is through journaling. Writing down your thoughts, worries, or even just reflecting on the day helps the brain process stress and offload anxiety. Studies show that people who practice journaling before bed fall asleep faster and experience higher quality rest, as their brain is not stuck in overthinking mode. Another essential evening habit is technology detoxing. Exposure to blue light from screens disrupts the production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for sleep. But beyond that, scrolling through news or social media before bed keeps the brain in an active, overstimulated state, making it harder to relax. Try setting a digital sunset an hour before bed, where you put away all screens and engage in relaxing activities instead, reading, stretching, or listening to calming music. Lastly, breathing exercises or progressive muscle relaxation can help release physical stress stored in the body. Techniques like 4-7-8 breathing, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 7, exhaling for 8, have been scientifically proven to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting deep relaxation. These small but powerful habits ensure that stress does not carry over from one day to the next, allowing you to wake up feeling refreshed and ready to handle challenges with resilience. Building a stress-proof life is not about avoiding stress. It is about developing daily habits that allow you to handle stress effectively. The most resilient people do not have less stress than others. They simply have a system in place that prevents stress from overwhelming them. By implementing a structured stress management routine, starting the day with intention, managing stress in real time, and ending the day with recovery, you create a foundation of resilience that allows you to navigate life's challenges with confidence and composure. Chapter 9. Building Mental Toughness. How to Thrive Under Pressure. What is mental toughness and why does it matter? In moments of extreme stress, what separates those who crumble from those who rise stronger? The answer is mental toughness, the ability to withstand pressure, recover from setbacks, and maintain focus even in the most demanding circumstances. Unlike physical strength, which depends on muscle and endurance, mental toughness is a psychological quality, a set of learned behaviors, attitudes, and coping strategies that determine how well you handle adversity. Many people assume that mental toughness is something you either have or you don't, but the truth is, it is a skill that can be built, strengthened, and refined over time. The world's most resilient individuals, from elite athletes to Navy SEALs to high-performing entrepreneurs, were not born with unshakable resilience. They trained their minds to handle pressure, just as a bodybuilder trains their muscles to lift heavier weights. This means that no matter where you are starting from, you can develop the ability to face stress without breaking down, to push through challenges, and to emerge stronger each time. In this chapter, we will explore the science of mental toughness, the habits that forge unbreakable resilience, and how you can train yourself to stay composed, confident, and effective even under extreme stress. If you have ever felt like stress overwhelms you, like pressure gets the best of you, or like setbacks leave you feeling drained, this chapter will give you the tools to turn stress into a source of strength rather than exhaustion. The psychology of pressure. How your brain reacts to stress. To develop mental toughness, you must first understand what happens in the brain under stress. When faced with a high-pressure situation, whether it is a tight deadline, a critical decision, or a life-altering challenge, the brain activates the amygdala, the region responsible for detecting threats. This triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing the body to fight, flee, or freeze. While this response was useful for early humans facing physical dangers in modern life, it often works against us, making us panic, overreact, or shut down under stress. However, mentally tough individuals have a different response to pressure. Instead of letting the amygdala take over, they engage the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the brain responsible for decision-making and emotional control. They have trained themselves to remain calm and think strategically rather than react impulsively. This is why elite athletes can perform under intense competition, why surgeons can operate under extreme conditions, and why military personnel can stay composed even in life-threatening situations. The good news: you can rewire your brain to respond to stress the same way. The control what you can principle. How to manage stress effectively. One of the most powerful mental frameworks for handling pressure is the control what you can principle. This principle is based on the understanding that stress is often caused by focusing on things outside of your control. When you stress about the economy, other people's opinions, or past mistakes, you waste energy on things you cannot change, which only increases anxiety. However, when you shift your focus to what you can control, you regain a sense of power and stability, reducing stress and increasing confidence. For example, if you are overwhelmed at work, instead of worrying about office politics or unrealistic deadlines, focus on what you can control: your schedule, your efficiency, your attitude. If you are facing a personal crisis, instead of dwelling on worst-case scenarios, focus on the actions you can take today to improve the situation. Research in resilience psychology shows that people who focus on controllable factors recover from stress faster and maintain higher levels of motivation compared to those who fixate on uncontrollable variables. A simple way to apply this principle in high-pressure situations is to ask yourself, what is within my control right now? The moment you shift your attention from what is outside your control to what is within your control, your stress levels decrease and your mental clarity increases. The power of self-talk. How your inner voice shapes your resilience. What you say to yourself in stressful moments determines how well you handle pressure. Studies in sports psychology reveal that elite athletes who use positive self-talk perform significantly better under pressure than those who engage in negative self-talk. This is because the brain believes what you repeatedly tell it. If you tell yourself, "I can't handle this," your brain will take that as a command, and your body will react with panic, tension, and mental shutdown. But if you tell yourself, "I am prepared for this challenge," your brain will activate the prefrontal cortex, allowing you to stay calm and focused. To build mental toughness, start paying attention to your inner dialogue during stressful moments. Are you talking to yourself like a supportive coach, or are you your own worst critic? The next time you feel overwhelmed, practice shifting your self-talk to empowering language. Instead of saying, "This is too hard," say, "This is an opportunity to grow." Instead of saying, "I always mess up under pressure," say, "I am learning to handle stress better each time." This small shift in self-talk can make a profound difference in how you respond to challenges. The importance of exposure therapy for building mental strength. One of the most effective ways to build mental toughness is through deliberate exposure to discomfort. Just as physical muscles grow through progressive overload, lifting heavier weights over time, mental resilience grows by facing increasing levels of pressure in a controlled way. This concept, known as exposure therapy, is widely used in psychology to help people overcome anxiety. But it is also a powerful tool for stress management. For example, if public speaking stresses you out, instead of avoiding it, start exposing yourself to low-stakes speaking situations, practicing in front of a mirror, recording yourself, speaking in small groups. Over time, your brain learns that the stress of public speaking is not a threat, and your confidence increases. If you struggle with handling pressure at work, intentionally take on small, manageable challenges, training your brain to adapt to higher stress levels without breaking down. This principle applies to all forms of stress. The more you train yourself to handle discomfort in controlled settings, the more mentally tough you become when real pressure hits. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, lean into them, embrace them, and use them as training grounds for mental resilience. The ability to thrive under pressure is not reserved for a select few. It is a skill that anyone can develop. By training your brain to respond to stress with clarity rather than panic, focusing on what you can control, mastering your self-talk, and exposing yourself to controlled challenges, you can transform the way you experience stress. Instead of fearing pressure, you can learn to use it as fuel for growth, confidence, and peak performance. Chapter 10. The Long-Term Resilience Mindset, Thriving in an Unpredictable World. Why a resilient mindset matters more than temporary stress management. Managing stress in the moment is important, but true resilience isn't about quick fixes. It's about developing a mindset that allows you to thrive in an unpredictable, ever-changing world. Life doesn't get easier. Challenges don't suddenly disappear. If anything, as we grow, the stakes become higher and the pressures become greater. The only way to not just survive but excel under pressure is by cultivating a long-term resilience mindset, a way of thinking that transforms stress from a burden into an opportunity for personal evolution. Resilient individuals don't just react to stress, they anticipate it, embrace it, and adapt to it. They understand that adversity is not an interruption to life, but an essential part of it. Instead of fearing difficulties, they see them as training grounds for strength, wisdom, and self-mastery. The most successful people in the world, leaders, athletes, innovators, are not those who avoid stress, but those who face it head-on with the confidence that they can handle whatever comes their way. The key to long-term resilience is shifting from a fragile mindset, where stress feels like an overwhelming force, to an adaptive mindset, where stress becomes a tool for growth. In this chapter, we'll explore the psychological principles of resilience, how to rewire your brain for long-term adaptability, and the habits that build an unshakable foundation for handling life's uncertainties. Because stress is not going away, but your ability to rise above it and thrive is within your control. Rewiring your brain for resilience, the science of neuroplasticity. One of the most exciting discoveries in neuroscience is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience and intentional practice. For decades, scientists believed that our brain's wiring was fixed in adulthood. But research now shows that our neural pathways are constantly reshaping based on how we think, react, and engage with challenges. This means that resilience is not a fixed trait. It is a skill that can be built, strengthened, and reinforced over time. The more you train your mind to handle adversity, the stronger your resilience circuits become. Every time you face stress and choose to respond with composure instead of panic, optimism instead of defeat, action instead of avoidance, you are rewiring your brain to handle future challenges with greater ease. Just like a muscle, the more you train your mind under controlled stress, the stronger it becomes under real pressure. One of the best ways to rewire your brain for resilience is through cognitive reappraisal, a technique that involves actively changing the way you interpret stress. Instead of seeing a setback as a failure, you reframe it as a lesson. Instead of viewing a challenge as an obstacle, you view it as an opportunity for self-improvement. Studies show that individuals who consistently engage in cognitive reappraisal experience lower stress levels, faster emotional recovery, and higher problem-solving abilities. Another key technique is exposure therapy for discomfort. When you regularly expose yourself to small, manageable challenges, your brain learns that stress is not something to fear, but something to navigate with confidence. This is why military training, high-level sports coaching, and elite executive programs all incorporate deliberate stress exposure, because the brain needs repetition to normalize pressure and turn stress into strength. Embracing the anti-fragile mindset, how stress can make you stronger. There is a fundamental difference between being resilient and being anti-fragile. A resilient person withstands stress without breaking, but an anti-fragile person actually becomes stronger because of stress. This concept, introduced by risk analyst and philosopher Nassim Nicholas Taleb, explains why some individuals not only recover from difficulties, but actually improve under pressure. Think of your body when you lift weights. If you apply the right amount of stress through resistance training, your muscles don't just endure the workout, they grow back stronger. The same applies to your mind. When you challenge yourself, step outside your comfort zone, and expose yourself to controlled stress, your psychological resilience expands. The key to thriving in an unpredictable world is not just to resist stress, but to use stress as a tool for mental and emotional growth. To develop an anti-fragile mindset, you must actively seek out voluntary discomfort. This could mean pushing yourself to take on a challenging project, engaging in difficult conversations instead of avoiding them, or deliberately practicing patience in high-stress situations. The more you train yourself to thrive under controlled difficulty, the more you expand your capacity to handle real-world pressure with ease. The power of emotional regulation, mastering your reactions. One of the biggest barriers to resilience is emotional reactivity, the tendency to let emotions dictate your response to stress. Many people believe that emotions are uncontrollable, but in reality, emotional responses are largely habitual patterns that can be rewired. To develop emotional resilience, practice pausing before reacting. When faced with a stressful situation, instead of immediately responding with frustration, anger, or anxiety, take a 5-second pause. This simple action interrupts the automatic emotional response, allowing the rational part of your brain to take over. Studies show that individuals who practice this technique experience lower stress levels, better decision-making, and improved conflict resolution skills. Another powerful strategy is labeling your emotions. Neuroscientists have found that simply naming an emotion, "I'm feeling overwhelmed" or "I'm feeling frustrated," reduces the intensity of the emotion. By verbalizing what you're experiencing, you engage the prefrontal cortex, which helps regulate emotional responses and restores clarity under stress. Developing a future-focused perspective. Why temporary setbacks don't define you. Resilient individuals have a long-term perspective on stress. They don't get trapped in the emotion of the moment. Instead, they ask themselves, will this matter in a year? 5 years. This simple shift in perspective helps create emotional distance from temporary struggles, making challenges feel less overwhelming. A great exercise for cultivating long-term thinking is the future self visualization. Take a moment to imagine yourself 5 years from now, stronger, wiser, and more experienced. Ask yourself, what would my future self want me to do in this moment? This practice helps detach from short-term stress and align your actions with long-term success. Resilience is not about being perfect. It's about continually adapting, learning, and growing. The world is unpredictable. Stress is inevitable. But how you respond to it is entirely within your control. By rewiring your brain for adaptability, embracing stress as a tool for growth, mastering emotional regulation, and maintaining a long-term perspective, you don't just survive challenges, you become stronger because of them. Chapter 11. The Power of Environment. How to build a resilient life from the outside. Resilience is not just internal. Your environment shapes your strength. When people talk about resilience, they often focus on internal factors: mental toughness, self-discipline, emotional control. And while these are crucial, the reality is that resilience is not just something that happens inside you. It is shaped by everything around you: the people you interact with, the routines you build, the physical spaces you live in, and the daily habits that either support or sabotage your ability to handle stress. Imagine two people. One wakes up in a cluttered, chaotic home, rushes through the morning with barely enough time to eat, and spends the day surrounded by negativity, complaining coworkers, draining social media, constant distractions. The second person wakes up in an organized, calming space, follows a morning routine designed to set a productive tone, and is surrounded by supportive relationships that reinforce their goals. Who do you think will handle stress better? It's obvious. Your environment either reinforces your resilience or erodes it. You might have all the mental toughness in the world, but if you live in an environment that constantly drains your energy, your resilience will be fighting against the current. The key to long-term strength isn't just learning how to manage stress. It's structuring your life so that stress doesn't accumulate unnecessarily in the first place. This chapter explores how to optimize the key areas of your life: your physical space, social circles, daily routines, and mental inputs, to create an environment that makes resilience effortless. The hidden power of your physical space. Why clutter kills mental clarity. Most people underestimate how much their physical surroundings influence their mental state, but neuroscience is clear. Clutter and chaos in your environment create stress in your brain. Studies show that a disorganized space leads to higher cortisol levels, increased mental fatigue, and a reduced ability to focus. Your brain constantly processes sensory information, and when your surroundings are chaotic, your mind is forced to work harder, leading to unnecessary stress. Think about how you feel in a cluttered, messy room versus a clean, well-organized space. One makes you feel overwhelmed, distracted, and on edge. The other brings a sense of calm, control, and clarity. If you want to build resilience, you need a space that supports it. Start by simplifying your surroundings. Remove unnecessary clutter, create designated areas for work and rest, and design a space that visually reinforces peace and productivity. Your physical space should act as a psychological reset button. When you walk into your bedroom, it should signal rest and recovery. When you step into your workspace, it should activate focus. If your environment constantly triggers stress, piles of unfinished work, digital notifications flooding your vision, disorganized spaces, it becomes infinitely harder to maintain resilience. The solution? Create an environment where stress reduction is built in. Your social circle, the greatest influence on your resilience. There is a famous saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Science backs this up. The people around you don't just influence you, they rewire you. If you are surrounded by negativity, constant complaining, and stress-driven individuals, your brain starts mirroring those patterns. But if you are surrounded by resilient, optimistic, growth-minded people, your brain adapts to that mindset. One of the most underestimated killers of resilience is toxic relationships. If you have people in your life who constantly drain your energy, dismiss your ambitions, or reinforce a mindset of helplessness, it will be nearly impossible to maintain resilience. The human brain is wired for social connection, and the more time you spend around people, the more you subconsciously adopt their thinking. Ask yourself, do the people around me help me become more resilient or more fragile? If your social circle is filled with negativity, it's time to consciously seek out individuals who reinforce strength, adaptability, and growth. This doesn't mean cutting people off entirely, but it does mean shifting your time and energy toward relationships that fuel you rather than drain you. Mental inputs, what you consume, shapes your resilience. Most people are careful about what they eat, but they don't realize that what they consume mentally has an even greater impact on resilience. The news you watch, the books you read, the conversations you engage in, these shape your stress levels and your ability to handle adversity. Studies show that constant exposure to negative media, bad news, fear-driven headlines, online arguments, creates chronic stress, rewires your brain for anxiety, and increases emotional reactivity. If you start your day by consuming social media full of outrage, negativity, and comparison, you are priming your brain to operate from a stress-reactive state. But if you begin your day with uplifting, educational, or empowering content, your mental state becomes proactive instead of reactive. Resilient people curate their mental diet. They are selective about what they consume, just as an athlete is selective about nutrition. If you want to strengthen your mind, start feeding it with content that reinforces resilience. Books on growth, podcasts on mindset, conversations that inspire rather than drain. The power of daily rituals, structuring your day for resilience. One of the greatest mistakes people make is leaving their mental resilience to chance. They react to stress instead of preparing for it. But resilience is like a muscle. It needs daily training. The world's most resilient individuals don't just hope they'll handle stress well, they design their days to reinforce mental strength. Morning routines are especially critical. How you start your day sets the emotional tone for everything that follows. Instead of waking up and immediately diving into emails, news, or social media, start with a grounding ritual. Exercise, journaling, meditation, goal setting, anything that puts you in a state of focus and control. Even just 10 minutes of intentional mental preparation can significantly reduce stress and improve resilience throughout the day. The same applies to evening routines. Sleep is one of the most powerful resilience boosters, yet most people sabotage their recovery by overstimulating their brains at night. Endless scrolling, late-night work, high-stress conversations. If you want to handle stress better, you must prioritize deep, restorative sleep. This means creating a nightly routine that signals relaxation. Dim lights, reading, journaling, or other calming activities that allow your brain to transition into recovery mode. Resilience isn't just about handling stress. It's about building a life that makes stress easier to manage in the first place. The environments you create, your physical space, your social circle, your mental inputs, and your daily routines either strengthen your resilience or weaken it. The key to long-term stress management isn't willpower. It's structuring your life in a way that naturally supports strength, focus, and adaptability. Chapter 12. Resilience in Crisis: How to Stay Strong When Everything Falls Apart. The true test of resilience: thriving in the storm, not just the calm. It's easy to feel strong when life is going well, when things are stable, when your plans unfold smoothly, and when the world around you seems predictable. Resilience is hardly tested. But what happens when everything falls apart? When a major life crisis, illness, loss, financial collapse, betrayal, or unforeseen catastrophe strikes, all the motivational quotes in the world can suddenly feel irrelevant. In these moments, resilience is no longer a theoretical concept. It is the single most important factor that determines whether you break or emerge stronger than before. Every person will face life-altering crises at some point. The difference between those who spiral into despair and those who find a way to rebuild lies in one thing: how they respond. When life shatters, there are two paths: one of paralysis, where fear, grief, and hopelessness consume you, and one of adaptation, where you acknowledge the pain but refuse to let it define you. True resilience is forged in crisis, not in comfort. This chapter explores the psychology of crisis resilience, how to control your mind when everything feels uncontrollable, how to navigate uncertainty without losing yourself, and how to rebuild your life when it feels like everything has collapsed. Because the real question is not whether you will face hardship, it's whether you will let hardship defeat you or strengthen you. The initial shock: understanding your brain's response to crisis. When a crisis hits, the first reaction is shock. Your brain, designed for survival, immediately shifts into fight, flight, or freeze mode, a primal response wired to handle immediate danger. But modern crises, financial ruin, job loss, betrayal, a sudden death, are not like the threats our ancestors faced. You can't fight your way out, run from the problem, or freeze until it disappears. Yet your brain still floods your system with stress hormones, making it difficult to think clearly, process information, or make rational decisions. The most critical step in any crisis is recognizing this biological response and not allowing it to dictate your actions. Studies on trauma psychology reveal that people who recover fastest from crises are those who accept the shock response but do not act impulsively based on it. They give themselves space to process the emotional impact before making major decisions. In the first hours or days of a crisis, practice grounding techniques to stabilize your nervous system. Breathe deeply, slow down your reactions, and remind yourself, this moment is overwhelming, but I will not let panic control me. The worst decisions in life are made under emotional hijacking. People quit, lash out, withdraw, or make irreversible choices in a state of distress. Resilience begins with taking control of your mind before taking control of the situation. The power of perspective. How to shift from why me to what now. One of the biggest obstacles to overcoming crisis is the trap of victimhood. It's natural to feel that life is unfair when disaster strikes. The mind searches for explanations. Why did this happen to me? Why now? Who is to blame? While understandable, staying in this mental loop prevents you from moving forward. The people who recover from crises fastest shift their thinking from why me to what now. This simple but powerful reframing moves you from helplessness to action. It acknowledges that while you may not have chosen this crisis, you do have control over your response. A study on post-traumatic growth, how people not only recover, but thrive after severe adversity, found that those who focused on what they could learn, how they could grow, and what they could do next were significantly more likely to rebuild stronger than those who remained stuck in the past. Your brain naturally resists this shift, but training yourself to ask, what is the next step I can take, rather than dwelling on unfairness, is the key to reclaiming power. Building mental toughness in crisis. The rule of small wins. In crisis, the future often feels overwhelming. When life as you knew it falls apart, the mind panics at the thought of rebuilding everything from scratch. This is why many people give up. Not because they are incapable of recovery, but because the scale of the challenge paralyzes them. The way to regain control is through small, measurable wins. Instead of focusing on the entire mountain ahead, break it into one step at a time. If you lost your job, don't panic about the future. Start by sending one email. If you suffered a major personal loss, don't force yourself to be okay. Start by taking one small action to move forward, even if it's as simple as getting out of bed and drinking water. Small wins create momentum. Momentum creates recovery. Psychological research shows that people who take even tiny actions in response to crisis rebuild faster than those who wait for motivation or clarity. Resilience is not about feeling strong. It is about acting strong, even when you feel weak. The more you move forward, the more your mind recalibrates, and what once felt impossible begins to feel manageable. Adapting to the new reality. How to let go of what was one of the hardest parts of crisis is accepting that life will never be the same. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, a failed business, or a dream that didn't work out. Resistance to reality causes suffering. The more you cling to how things should be, the harder it becomes to move forward. Resilient individuals practice radical acceptance, the ability to acknowledge painful truths without resisting them. This does not mean giving up, nor does it mean ignoring grief. It means saying, "This is my new reality. It may not be what I wanted, but I will work with what I have." A powerful exercise is to write down 2 lists. 1. What I have lost. Acknowledging grief is necessary. Suppressing it only prolongs suffering. Write down everything you are mourning, the life you thought you'd have, the opportunities that are gone. Accept that this pain is real. 2. What I can still build. This list shifts your focus forward. No matter how much you have lost, something remains. New possibilities exist. Write down even the smallest things: your skills, your relationships, your health, your ability to start again. This is where your next chapter begins. The most resilient people in the world are not those who avoided hardship, but those who faced it, adapted, and rebuilt. Every crisis, no matter how devastating, contains the potential for transformation. You will not be the same person on the other side of this experience, but that does not mean you will be weaker. Many of the world's greatest leaders, thinkers, and innovators were forged in crisis. Hardship does not destroy you, it reveals you. Chapter 13. Transforming Pain into Strength. How to use adversity as fuel for growth. The hidden gift of hardship. Why pain can become your greatest teacher. If given a choice, most people would avoid pain. It is a natural instinct to seek comfort, to desire a life free from struggle, and to view hardship as something to be escaped, rather than embraced. But here's the truth that most people don't realize until they have walked through fire. Your greatest growth comes from your greatest struggles. The very experiences that break you down also have the power to build you back up stronger, if you choose to let them. History is filled with stories of individuals who faced unimaginable adversity only to emerge as forces of strength, wisdom, and purpose. Survivors of personal tragedies who become beacons of hope. Entrepreneurs who lost everything but rebuilt empires. Athletes who suffered devastating injuries only to come back stronger. People who endured betrayal, financial ruin, or total failure, yet found a way not just to survive, but to transform their pain into fuel for something greater. Why do some people crumble under pain, while others use it as a catalyst for transformation? The answer lies not in the circumstances, but in the response. Resilient people don't let pain define them, they let it refine them. This chapter explores the process of turning pain into power, how to extract wisdom from hardship, how to reframe suffering as a teacher, and how to rebuild a life that is not just restored, but elevated. Because pain, when harnessed correctly, is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a new one. The choice: will pain destroy you or strengthen you? Pain presents a fork in the road. One path leads to bitterness, resentment, and helplessness. The other leads to wisdom, resilience, and reinvention. The critical factor that determines which path you take is perspective, the way you choose to interpret what has happened to you. Most people, when faced with pain, ask the same question: why me? This question, while understandable, is a trap. It assumes that suffering is unfair, that it serves no purpose, and that life has singled you out for punishment. But the reality is that pain is a universal human experience. No one is exempt. The real question is not why me, but what now? What can be learned from this? How can this experience shape you into a stronger version of yourself? What can you do with this pain that will serve a higher purpose? Shifting your mindset from victimhood to empowerment does not mean ignoring the pain or pretending it doesn't hurt. It means acknowledging the pain, honoring it, but refusing to let it be the final chapter of your life. Pain has already taken something from you. Don't let it take your future too. Reframing pain, the science of post-traumatic growth. Psychologists have long studied a phenomenon called post-traumatic growth, the ability of individuals to not only recover from hardship, but to grow beyond it, emerging stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Unlike post-traumatic stress, which weakens a person's ability to cope, post-traumatic growth creates an expanded sense of self, purpose, and meaning. Research shows that people who experience post-traumatic growth often report a deeper appreciation for life. Pain strips away illusions and reveals what truly matters. Stronger relationships. Adversity clarifies who is truly there for you. Newfound purpose. Many people find a calling they never would have pursued otherwise. Increased mental toughness. Surviving hardship builds unshakable inner strength. A redefined identity. They no longer see themselves as fragile, but as unbreakable. The key to unlocking post-traumatic growth lies in perspective and action. Those who emerge stronger are those who actively engage with their pain rather than suppress it. They ask, "How can I use this?" rather than simply waiting for the pain to fade. Turning pain into fuel. The process of transformation. To turn pain into strength, you must actively engage in a process of transformation. This process consists of several key steps. Number 1, accept and feel the pain. Many people try to outrun pain, numbing it with distractions, addictions, or avoidance. But true transformation begins with facing the pain head-on. Give yourself permission to grieve, to feel the emotions deeply, to acknowledge that what happened to you hurt. Suppressing pain only allows it to fester and manifest in destructive ways later. Healing begins when you sit with the discomfort and allow yourself to process it. 2. Extract the lessons from your struggle. Pain, when examined closely, contains wisdom. Ask yourself, what has this experience taught me? What have I learned about myself, about others, about life? How has this hardship revealed truths I may have otherwise ignored? Every crisis carries within it a hidden lesson that, if embraced, can become a guiding force for the future. 3. Rebuild with intention. Once you have gained insight from your pain, the next step is deliberate reconstruction. This is the phase where you take control of your narrative and decide who you want to become moving forward. Many people fall into the trap of trying to go back to normal after a crisis. But true transformation happens when you use the experience to create something better than before. This could mean rebuilding your career in a way that aligns more with your values, strengthening relationships that truly matter, eliminating toxic influences, or setting new goals that reflect your newfound clarity. The key is intentionality, choosing to rebuild in a way that is shaped by wisdom, not just survival. 4. Use your pain to serve others. One of the most powerful ways to transform pain is by using it to help others. Many of the world's greatest movements, organizations, and personal missions were born from adversity. Survivors of loss create support groups. People who overcame addiction help others recover. Individuals who faced injustice fight for change. When you take your pain and turn it into service, it no longer owns you. Instead, it becomes a tool for something greater than yourself. Ask yourself, how can my experience help someone else? How can my struggles become a source of wisdom and support for those going through similar hardships? The moment you turn your pain into purpose, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a source of strength. Pain changes you. But whether it weakens or strengthens you is a choice. Every scar, every struggle, and every loss carries within it the potential for transformation. You are not the same person you were before your hardships, and that is a gift. The version of you that emerges on the other side of adversity is wiser, stronger, and more capable than the version of you that existed before. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about learning to use pain as fuel for growth, strength, and purpose. The most powerful individuals are not those who have never suffered, but those who have faced suffering and turned it into something extraordinary. Your pain is not just a wound, it is raw material for the next, greater version of yourself. Chapter 14. The Art of Lasting Resilience. How to Stay Strong for Life. The foundation of true strength resilience is often misunderstood. Many people think of it as a trait reserved for those who have been through the worst. The war survivors, the terminally ill who beat the odds, the entrepreneurs who lose everything and rebuild from scratch. But resilience is not just for the extraordinary few. It is not simply the ability to withstand difficulty or recover from hardship. It is a way of moving through life, an approach that allows you to remain steady and purposeful no matter what challenges arise. True resilience is not about surviving one crisis. It is about building a mindset that ensures you can thrive for a lifetime. If you have come this far, you already understand the power of stress, the ways in which adversity can fuel growth, and how the mind and body are wired to adapt to challenges. But the ultimate test of resilience is whether it lasts. Strength that fades under pressure is not real strength. A mindset that collapses when uncertainty arises is not truly prepared. The goal is to cultivate a resilience so deeply ingrained in who you are that you no longer have to think about it. It simply becomes the way you respond to the world. In this final chapter, we will explore the pillars of lifelong resilience and how you can integrate them into your daily life, ensuring that no matter what comes, you remain unshaken. The psychology of lasting resilience. If you were to look at the most resilient people in history, you would notice that they all share one fundamental characteristic: an ability to see beyond the present moment. They do not get stuck in the immediate pain of their challenges. They zoom out, viewing their struggles as part of a larger journey. This shift in perspective is critical, because when you view hardship as a chapter rather than the whole book, you free yourself from the paralyzing weight of the present. Resilient individuals do not just endure, they adapt. They do not simply push through. They transform their challenges into something meaningful. Psychologists have studied resilience for decades, and one of the most striking findings is that resilient people tend to have what is called an optimistic explanatory style. This means that when they face difficulties, they do not interpret them as permanent or personal failures. Instead of saying, "This always happens to me," they say, "This is a tough moment, but it won't last forever." Instead of saying, "I failed," they say, "This didn't work, but I can learn from it." This mental reframing is not about pretending things are easy. It is about training your brain to see challenges in a way that empowers you rather than drains you. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this mindset is to challenge your own internal narratives. When something difficult happens, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about this? Is this story helping me or hurting me? How else could I view this situation? By consciously shifting the way you interpret adversity, you begin to develop a mindset that sees setbacks not as final, but as fuel for future strength. Emotional mastery, the key to stability. Resilient people are not emotionless. They do not suppress fear, sadness, or anger. Instead, they have learned how to navigate emotions without being controlled by them. They recognize that emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and they eventually pass. When you understand this, you stop fighting your emotions and instead learn how to ride them. One of the greatest skills you can develop is emotional regulation. This means recognizing what you feel without reacting impulsively. When faced with a stressful situation, instead of immediately reacting with frustration, self-doubt, or panic, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Where is this emotion coming from? Is my reaction based on fear or reality? This ability to pause before reacting is the difference between being consumed by emotions and using emotions as a tool for awareness. Studies show that people who practice mindfulness, simply the act of observing thoughts and emotions without judgment, are significantly more resilient in the face of stress. When you learn to watch your thoughts instead of being controlled by them, you gain an immense level of personal power. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by fear, you learn to recognize fear as just another emotion, one that does not have to dictate your actions. Physical resilience, strengthening the body to support the mind. We often think of resilience as a mental game, but the truth is that your physical health plays a massive role in your ability to handle stress. A strong body supports a strong mind. When you are sleep deprived, poorly nourished, and physically drained, even small challenges feel overwhelming. On the other hand, when your body is well cared for, you have greater energy, focus, and emotional stability. One of the most overlooked aspects of resilience is sleep. Chronic sleep deprivation impairs decision-making, increases emotional reactivity, and reduces the brain's ability to process stress. Prioritizing high-quality sleep by maintaining a consistent schedule, reducing screen time before bed, and creating a restful environment can significantly improve your ability to handle life's difficulties. Nutrition also plays a critical role in resilience. Highly processed foods, excessive sugar, and poor hydration contribute to inflammation in the body, which has been linked to increased stress and anxiety. Eating whole, nutrient-dense foods gives your body the foundation it needs to handle challenges with greater clarity and stability. And of course, regular physical movement, whether through exercise, yoga, or simply walking, helps regulate stress hormones and boosts mental resilience. The power of purpose, why meaning fuels strength. One of the greatest sources of resilience is having a sense of purpose. When people have a clear reason to keep going, they can endure incredible hardship without breaking. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously wrote that those who survived concentration camps were often those who had a deep sense of purpose, whether it was reuniting with a loved one, sharing their story, or contributing something meaningful to the world. If you want to cultivate lifelong resilience, one of the most important things you can do is identify your own sense of purpose. What drives you? What impact do you want to make? What keeps you going when things are hard? This does not have to be something grand or world-changing. It can be as simple as wanting to be a source of strength for your family, pursuing a creative passion, or committing to personal growth. When you have a sense of purpose, challenges become obstacles rather than roadblocks. You develop the mindset that difficulties are simply part of the journey, rather than signs that you should give up. Purpose fuels perseverance, and perseverance is the heart of resilience. True resilience is not about avoiding struggle. It is about becoming the kind of person who can handle struggle without losing themselves. It is about building a mind that sees challenges as stepping stones, emotions as guides rather than masters, and setbacks as temporary rather than defining. It is about strengthening your body so that it supports your mind and anchoring yourself in purpose so that even in the darkest moments, you have a reason to keep moving forward. You now have the tools to build lasting resilience. The only question left is, will you apply them? Because in the end, resilience is not something you wait for. It is something you create every single day. Chapter 15. The Future of Stress. Harnessing its power in an uncertain world. As the world moves forward into an era defined by rapid technological advancements, economic instability, and ever-evolving global challenges, stress is no longer just a personal experience, but a universal condition. Gone are the days when stress was merely a reaction to physical threats or survival needs. Instead, it has become an integral part of modern existence, woven into the fabric of daily life through the pressures of career progression, financial uncertainty, social expectations, and the unpredictable shifts in political and technological landscapes. What was once an occasional response to danger has now evolved into a continuous presence, affecting mental, emotional, and physical well-being in profound ways. While many view stress as an enemy to be avoided at all costs, the reality is that it is an inescapable force, one that, if properly harnessed, can serve as a catalyst for growth, resilience, and unparalleled success. The ability to manage and leverage stress effectively will determine not only personal fulfillment, but also one's capacity to adapt to an increasingly complex and fast-paced world. Why stress mastery will define the future. The future is not going to be less stressful. It will be more demanding than ever before. Automation, artificial intelligence, economic uncertainty, and the constant need for reinvention will place immense pressure on individuals to adapt quickly. Those who fail to develop a robust stress response system will find themselves overwhelmed, unable to cope with the shifting tides of the modern world. However, those who embrace stress, learning to use it as a source of strength rather than suffering, will thrive in this new environment. The key to success will no longer be measured solely by intelligence or talent, but by the ability to remain composed, strategic, and emotionally resilient in high-pressure situations. Stress mastery will become the defining characteristic of high achievers, leaders, and innovators. The future will belong to those who train themselves to function at peak performance under intense conditions, who develop the mental endurance to sustain effort over long periods, and who transform stress from a paralyzing force into a powerful driver of action and achievement. The power of psychological endurance. To prepare for this future, one must first understand the true nature of stress and the role it plays in human development. Stress is not inherently negative. It is a signal, a biological response designed to enhance alertness, focus, and problem-solving abilities. The issue is not the presence of stress itself, but how it is interpreted and managed. When viewed as a threat, stress can lead to anxiety, burnout, and chronic health issues. However, when understood as a challenge, it can serve as a tool for growth, pushing individuals to refine their skills, expand their capabilities, and achieve their highest potential. The most successful people of the future will not be those who avoid stress, but those who develop the cognitive flexibility to shift their perspective, seeing difficulties as opportunities rather than obstacles. By mastering stress adaptation, they will unlock higher levels of productivity, creativity, and endurance, allowing them to navigate uncertainty with confidence and clarity. One of the most critical aspects of future stress resilience will be psychological endurance, the ability to maintain clarity, emotional stability, and decision-making power over prolonged periods of intense pressure. Unlike traditional resilience, which focuses on recovery after a setback, psychological endurance is about sustaining peak performance in the face of ongoing uncertainty and challenge. This requires deliberate training, conditioning the mind to function optimally, even in chaotic or high-stakes environments. Exposure therapy, in which individuals gradually introduce themselves to controlled stressors such as cold exposure, high-intensity problem-solving, or physically demanding activities, has been shown to increase mental toughness and reduce the likelihood of stress-related breakdowns. Additionally, cognitive reappraisal, changing one's interpretation of stress from harmful to beneficial, has been proven to alter the body's physiological response, reducing the negative health effects typically associated with chronic stress. Those who train themselves to see pressure as a performance enhancer rather than a threat will gain an extraordinary advantage in an increasingly competitive world. Embracing chaos, the new competitive advantage. Adapting to the future will also require a complete rethinking of how we approach uncertainty. For most people, unpredictability is synonymous with anxiety. Not knowing what the future holds creates a sense of vulnerability, leading to hesitation, fear, and decision paralysis. However, the individuals who will thrive in the years ahead will be those who actively embrace chaos, developing a mindset that views uncertainty as a natural and inevitable part of progress, rather than a source of distress. This shift in perspective allows for greater flexibility, ensuring that unexpected changes are met with adaptability rather than resistance. The ability to maintain composure in uncertain conditions will become a highly valuable skill, separating those who struggle from those who succeed. Instead of seeking comfort in predictability, the most resilient individuals will train themselves to find stability within disorder, using change as a tool for growth rather than a reason for fear. AI, automation, and human resilience. The rise of artificial intelligence and automation will further challenge human resilience, making emotional intelligence, creativity, and adaptability more crucial than ever before. While AI can process data at speeds unimaginable to the human brain, it lacks the ability to endure stress, think abstractly, and navigate the complexities of human relationships. As technology advances, the most valuable skills will no longer be routine-based knowledge, but the uniquely human abilities to innovate, problem-solve, and maintain emotional balance under pressure. The professionals who excel in this new era will be those who cultivate mental and emotional discipline, ensuring that they remain indispensable despite the increasing presence of automation. The workforce of the future will not be defined by technical skill alone, but by the ability to perform at a high level in uncertain, high-pressure environments. The stress-resilient blueprint for future success. To prepare for the demands of this evolving world, individuals must commit to lifetime stress adaptation training, building habits and mental frameworks that ensure long-term resilience. This means creating routines that foster both physical and psychological endurance, such as regular physical exercise, mindfulness practices, controlled exposure to discomfort, and structured problem-solving challenges. It also requires a shift in focus from avoiding stress to optimizing stress, using it as a performance-enhancing tool rather than a limiting force. Those who consistently push their limits, exposing themselves to controlled adversity in daily life, will develop a nervous system that thrives under pressure rather than collapses from it. The ultimate lesson: becoming the architect of your own future. The ultimate lesson of stress mastery is that it is not about eliminating pressure, but learning to function optimally within it. The future will demand individuals who can maintain sharp decision-making, unwavering emotional stability, and peak performance despite external turbulence. Those who take charge of their stress response, conditioning themselves to use stress constructively, will rise as leaders in an increasingly complex and uncertain world. The question is no longer whether stress will exist, but whether individuals will control it or be controlled by it. The choice belongs to each person, and those who choose wisely will shape not only their own success, but also the future of human resilience itself. Chapter 16. Mastering the Art of Stress, a Life Beyond Fear and Resistance. The Ultimate Shift. Seeing stress as your greatest ally. As we reach the end of this journey, it is time to confront the deepest truth about stress, one that has been at the heart of every chapter, every lesson, and every insight we have explored. Stress is not your enemy. It never was. It never will be. From the moment we are born, stress has shaped us, guided us, tested us, and forced us to evolve. The moments that have defined our lives were never the easy ones. They were the trials, the uncertainties, the moments of doubt where we were pushed beyond what we thought we could handle. And yet, here we are, alive, breathing, moving forward. No matter how much resistance we have felt toward stress in the past, it is undeniable that it has played a critical role in shaping the person we have become. The only question that remains is, what do we do with this knowledge now? For most of human history, stress has been misunderstood, feared, and avoided. We have been conditioned to believe that a life free from stress is the ultimate goal. But those who live by this philosophy find themselves constantly at odds with reality. They chase comfort, but in doing so, they weaken their own resilience. They fear discomfort, but in avoiding it, they diminish their ability to grow. They seek peace, but instead they find anxiety, because the very act of avoiding stress creates a life of stagnation, fragility, and helplessness. The truth is that a life without stress is not a life of peace. It is a life of decay. Stress is the force that keeps us strong, sharp, and engaged with the world. Those who embrace it, who learn to work with it rather than against it, discover something profound. Stress is the key to unlocking our highest potential. The final transformation, becoming anti-fragile. At the beginning of this book, we explored how stress, when managed poorly, can lead to burnout, anxiety, and exhaustion. But we have also seen the other side, the power that comes from leaning into stress, understanding its signals, and using it as fuel rather than fear. Now, as we close this journey, it is time to go one step further. It is not enough to simply withstand stress. It is not even enough to adapt to it. The highest level of resilience is to become anti-fragile, to grow stronger, smarter, and more powerful because of stress. To be anti-fragile is to thrive in disorder, to seek challenge rather than avoid it, to use every difficulty as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. It is the opposite of fragility, where one breaks under pressure. It is also different from mere resilience, which is the ability to endure. Anti-fragility is about gaining from chaos, becoming stronger under pressure, and finding opportunity in every obstacle. Imagine a world where, instead of fearing stress, you crave it, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand that every moment of pressure is an invitation to evolve. How does one become anti-fragile? The answer is simple but not easy. You must train yourself to seek stress in controlled, purposeful ways. This does not mean recklessly pushing yourself into exhaustion, but rather deliberately exposing yourself to small, consistent doses of discomfort, so that when real challenges arise, you are prepared. This can take many forms. Physical challenges like cold exposure, fasting, endurance training, or martial arts. Mental challenges like deep work, problem solving under pressure, and making difficult decisions without hesitation. Emotional challenges like handling rejection, engaging in difficult conversations, or taking risks despite fear. Every time you lean into stress, rather than running from it, you strengthen your nervous system, expand your capacity for resilience, and transform your relationship with fear, living a life of meaning and purpose. When we look back at history, The people we admire most, the ones who changed the world, who left a lasting impact, who lived with intensity and passion, were not those who avoided stress. They were the ones who embraced it fully. They were the warriors, the innovators, the artists, the leaders, the pioneers who ran toward challenges while others retreated. These individuals did not seek comfort. They sought meaning. They understood that a life of purpose is not a life of ease. It is a life of depth, challenge, and relentless growth. What makes stress bearable is not simply resilience. It is having a deep, unshakable reason for enduring it. When you are driven by purpose, stress transforms from something to be avoided into something to be embraced. A doctor working tirelessly to save lives does not see stress as suffering. She sees it as service. An entrepreneur struggling through failures does not see stress as failure. He sees it as the price of innovation. A parent sacrificing sleep and energy for their child does not see stress as a burden. They see it as love in action. If stress feels overwhelming in your life, it may not be because you are incapable of handling it. It may be because you have not yet found a purpose powerful enough to make it worth enduring. The secret to a fulfilling life is not stress reduction. It is stress alignment. When your struggles are aligned with your highest values, stress becomes fuel rather than friction. This is why the final step in mastering stress is not just about mindset or physiology. It is about choosing a life that is truly worth the struggle. The choice before you. As we reach the final pages of this book, you are left with a choice. You can continue down the path that most people take, the path of avoidance, comfort seeking, and resistance. You can keep trying to eliminate stress from your life, only to find that it continues to find you in different forms. You can remain stuck in the belief that peace comes from the absence of pressure, rather than the mastery of it. But if you choose this path, you must also accept the cost: a life of fear, hesitation, and untapped potential. Or you can choose a different path. You can choose to embrace stress, not as a curse, but as a gift. You can train yourself to see pressure as an invitation to rise, to expand, to become more than you were yesterday. You can develop the strength to stand tall in the face of uncertainty, to walk boldly into discomfort, and to emerge on the other side stronger, sharper, and more alive than ever before. This is not just about managing stress. It is about transforming yourself into the kind of person who thrives under pressure, who seeks challenge rather than avoids it, who turns adversity into advantage. This is about reclaiming control over your mind, your emotions, and your future. This is about becoming someone who does not merely survive stress, but masters it. Final words. The beginning of your greatest chapter. This book may be ending, but your journey is just beginning. The knowledge you now hold is not just meant to be read, it is meant to be lived. The real transformation happens not in the pages of a book, but in the choices you make from this moment forward. When the next challenge arises,